Royal College of Art is an entirely postgraduate institution of art and design. And although we do have some humanities programs and some research degrees, which are predominantly text-based, the majority of our courses are practice-based, supported by a mandatory 6,000 to 10,000 word dissertation. I'm aware that this is much shorter than most other MA dissertations, but nevertheless, it can be a real hurdle for roughly a third of our 2,500 students, because a third of our students have an assessment of dyslexia and or dyspraxia. And Andrew Eddy and Qona Rankin both referred to that. So I wanted to make it clear from the start that although I'll begin this talk by focusing on text-based support strategies, I'm also going to talk about and show some examples of how we support our students in terms of their studio practices. These cases range from Jenny, a ceramic student working out how to program and book a kiln, to Alistair, an architectural student struggling to fit a drawing onto a piece of paper, to Kate, a sculptor student, having to learn to talk her way to a sale, and to Lucy, a textile student, struggling how to thread a loom. So if your interest is solely text-based support strategies, please feel free to have 20 minutes off and I won't be at all offended. So the dissertation, why is it such a hurdle?
Basically, I've always had a problem with writing, but that was basically because I thought that I had a lack of education. I didn't learn read, write, not until later on in my life, so I immediately thought that was the reason why I wasn't able to gather information and understand it. Understand that with speaking, I've always been fairly confident and being able to put over my ideas, but when it came to put that in writing, people would read what I wrote and thought to themselves, hang on a minute, that's nothing like what you said. And that was my biggest fear of the dissertation. I enjoyed gathering all the information, but then when it actually came to putting it down in writing, it wasn't anything that I told her. And she had a real problem trying to go through with me. So during my BA, the process of going back and forth was so extensive that before to do an MA, it scared the hell out of me. I really didn't want to do it. And it was only through bullying with my fellow colleagues that I decided to go for it. And I think the main problem, again, is the refining. I can gather hundreds of drawers full of it, but it's just the refining down and making it sound academically correct. I have the main thing.
Luckily for us, all Mac computers have a built-in text-to-speech facility. In other words, any Word document or PDF can be read to you.
Most people recognize me by my voice.
Hello, my name is Samantha. I am an American English voice.
So this is something I really encourage, listening to as much research material as possible. Listening to it first without reading it, so you can preview it, then looking quickly through the text, noting any illustrations or charts, headings, that sort of thing, then listening to it whilst reading. It can also be helpful to write out some questions that you hope the text is going to answer. If you're reading a chapter in a book, then often the opening paragraph will tell you what the chapter's about, and the final paragraph will hopefully have a summing up. So you can then decide, is the chapter worth reading? Am I going to get the information I'm looking for? It's all about reading with intent. I encourage students to be aware of their preferred reading environment. Are they happiest reading lying down or sitting upright or somewhere in between? What sort of lighting suits them? Bright directed light or a more evenly lit room? Do they prefer complete quiet, or do they find it helpful to have classical music playing in the background or murmuring voices like in a cafe? And finally, I get them to ask themselves how long they can concentrate for before needing a break. 20 minutes, perhaps half an hour. But we're being aware of that and then making themselves stop and taking a 5-minute break, stretching their legs, getting some fresh air, having a hot drink before they get back to their reading. And of course, it goes without saying that they need to eliminate all distractions. So turn off phones and any alerts that might pop up on their screens. As I mentioned before, online library materials such as JSTOR can be read to you, but there are other resources such as Bob that you can see here, where you can listen and watch and read the transcript, which you can highlight. I'd been going through all these resources with a student once, and she said to me, "But Qona, isn't this cheating?" Something else that we've found has made quite a big difference to some students, not all students, but some, are coloured filters. And you can get packets of these, different tints. Different students will have preferred different colours, but it can make a huge difference to the way the print behaves, in that it can stabilise it and stop it jumping around all over the place, stop it being blurry and having halos. And these are great because you can also use them over your computer screen as well. You can also get these lovely little reading rulers. Again, you can get them in different colours. Not only do they often stop the text from moving for some students, but also the ruler in it can help with tracking and keeping you moving forward with your reading. I also found that they've got, these are a bit odd, tinted glasses, which can have the same effect. But again, different coloured tints work in different ways for different students. And sometimes students will say, "That's amazing, it's made such a difference," although they probably tend to use these in the privacy of their own homes. Another technique I use is with mind mapping. So a lot of our students, because they're all very visual people, they love to use mind maps, and they'll use these mind maps to help them plan their dissertations. But what they'll often do is come with a massive plan like this of practically everything they've ever thought of about a subject, and probably has the potential to be a PhD with 60,000 words or so. But what I've found is that if you get some frames, and I've got different sized frames for to show them how the scale can alter, you can say, look, how about you just look at that bit, or how about you look at this bit, or what would happen if you used those ideas there. And I think it can very often help them to see which part of this huge picture of ideas that they've got in their brain is going to be the part that they focus on for their dissertation. And as I say, you can play around with this with different sized frames and putting 2 or 3 together. You can help them to see that these ideas haven't gone away and they could come back to them at a later stage. But for the purposes of the 6,000 to 10,000 word dissertation, they just need to focus on a very small part of that. That was what I wanted to show you. So one of the best parts of my job is getting emails like these. Nearly all of our students who take up this help benefit enormously, and not just succeed in getting a good mark for the dissertation, but also it can help them to see themselves differently, perhaps even as writers. I've got a lovely drawing here done by one such student a couple of years ago. She sent me an email when she got her dissertation results, and this is what she said. "All my life, I'd been told I was not academic. When I had the dyslexia test at the RCA, it was a relief to discover there was an explanation for my struggles. Before we handed in our dissertations, we were told that if we received an email from CHS admin office telling us we had mail waiting, that meant we'd either failed or got a distinction. So when I received such an email, I assumed I'd failed. But in fact, I was awarded a first-class honour degree for my dissertation. Since then, I've become much more receptive and confident. It was like a roof being lifted off the sky. I was so relieved to discover I wasn't of low intelligence. Getting a distinction has enabled me to reframe my world and connect to a part of myself I didn't know existed." So I'm dyslexic, and over the years, through necessity, I've become expert at delegation. So now I'm going to hand over to the students to talk about some of the studio practices they struggle with and offer some suggestions of ways to help. I'd just like you to imagine being in the ceramic studio that this student Jenny is in, and the noise that she's having to deal with whilst trying to concentrate on a set of instructions where the words for her are all moving around.
This was actually, I'm remaking a test piece. I'm remaking this piece over here. Go through all this stuff. Now it says what you do, but I don't actually understand. It goes on to another place.
Qona, can you hear that all right?
I can hear it. Can you not hear it? I mean, the sound is very bad. So
Constantly getting the wrong kill.
Better, yes.
Fiona, I think it's...
Yes, I was just texting one of the conference participants to make sure it wasn't my computer. So the sound isn't good. Will we switch? Is it a long video? Will we switch to...
there's just this video. It's not long. You can, and then there's one more afterwards. But
yes, let's switch. Let's switch to our system, because your whole visual display, Qona, has been fantastic. I'm loving it.
This is a drawing which kind of did my head in, basically, because I've been trying to pack a lot of information into it, and
Beth, could we take over the video and use our video, please?
Do I need to stop sharing?
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Bear with us, please, the audience. I've loved all your demonstration and the artwork, and the imagery has been lovely.
This was actually, I'm remaking a test piece. I'm remaking this piece over here.
Much better.
All this stuff. Now it says what you do, but I don't actually understand it at all. So then it goes on to another page. Okay, this is better. Just ignore all that fun bit. This is another difficulty. I'm constantly getting the wrong hill, putting my name on the wrong hill. That's the wrong. And then you get the dates down here. You have to work out a week in advance. It's okay, I get it, but sometimes I do it completely wrong.
this is a drawing which kind of did my head in, basically, because I've been trying to pack a lot of information into it, and I've written lists, but I've been unable to actually shoehorn it all in. Organising drawings is murder.
Because there's so much information you need to put on them.
Yeah, and I find it very difficult to sort of know what's important, or you know, what to leave out and what to put in. I mean, actually, you know, in retrospect and having had the conversation that we've had, I think this would be more suited to a separate drawing. You know, or, you know, you can recognise this shape, so maybe to show where the visitor centre goes, you know, actually, you know, sit it in a landscape rather than trying to do it all in one drawing.
I find it very, very difficult, and have have found through the workshops that we've done at college that writing it down and reading it is the thing that works for me, because I will forget what to say and become tongue-tied. So it's really been very useful for me to realise that you can do that, and that's a safe sort of situation for me. I don't mind having discussions about things or answering questions. It's just if I'm asked to stand up and explain my work from scratch, I do find that very difficult. I think that maybe the potential of lack of spontaneity is outweighed by not being able to say what I want to say, by not writing it down. So yes, it might not seem very spontaneous, but it is a way of getting everything over, because I do get very nervous and go blank.
If I didn't understand something, I'd just try things out on the loom instead of reading about it and understanding it that way. Or even you've got different computer programs, working with them, so I understand the structure that way. The way of getting around it is to give myself as many guidelines as I possibly can. When I'm working out a weave, I don't just get a piece of graph paper and plot it out. I basically create a frame for myself to work to.
So would other people just work on a piece of graph paper?
Yeah, generally. I mean, this is probably not the best example, but it will kind of give you a rough idea. I break everything down into as small as blocks as I possibly can. I don't take it as a complete whole because I'll just get too confused.
Right.
I work through it that way. It probably takes me longer because I check and I double check and I recheck, and I have a system of I will add all. I've got like my own checking system. I'll add different things together because I'll know what numbers are meant to add up to other numbers. This is really working with the structure more than actually thinking textbook and anything like that. I mean, this to me is sketchbook work.
This was actually
My name is Jack Tan, and I am a second-year MA student studying ceramics and glass. I think demonstrations that I've had problems with are one in which there is no kind of image or sample of the end product, and then I'm just being taken through a number of processes, and I can't kind of fit any of those parts together. I can't really connect this bit that they're making separately to the whole object. So sometimes it's kind of really helpful if I had the whole object there as well, so that I can make the visual link, really. That's kind of a really helpful thing.
Demonstrations where we have a demonstration and then sort of have a go straight away, that's fine for me. That's how I learn best. When you have a demonstration and then of someone else showing you the process and then you don't get to have a go yourself, that is useless to me. I find visual aids such as videos most helpful, as well as diagrams, just because they're something that I can look at again and again, sort of when I'm doing coming back to a process or a technique and I'm unsure. I can always have those to look at again, especially with images or diagrams. I can sort of add my own notes to.
What I'm learning here is actually why I've been good at certain things and not so quick at others, and ways of like coping strategies. As soon as I come across boxes and flow charts, I'll go into I won't engage with that at all. I find that really confusing. So I think the best way for me to learn is to make my own notes, which makes it really slow going, especially on computers. It's not so much a physical tool, they're almost like manuals on the page. You can't really draw drop down boxes. You have a sort of, end up with really odd diagrams. So I haven't really mastered that one.
The problem with using plaster in demonstrations is that you make something, then you make plaster up, and you've got to wait basically for the plaster to get to right consistency. So it could take 5 minutes for the plaster to settle. So people, well, the department has tended to kind of do demonstrations in tandem. This swapping and switching kind of quite confuses me completely. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because all the plaster's white. So at some point I kind of got confused about which object was for which project that they were demonstrating. I don't know, maybe if they coloured the plaster blue for one set and then white for the other might help. I don't know. And perhaps also is to maybe just go through the whole process beforehand somehow. It probably isn't very useful to go through the whole process live. So like perhaps making a video and then we could watch the video beforehand of each of the two different objects being made and then go for the demonstration. That might help as well.
To say was that over the past years, I've learned that there's so much untapped potential amongst neurodiverse students about strategies that will help them. And I'm really hoping that that's one of the things that will be developed by our Albertopolis network that Qona Rankin was talking about. So I'd just like to thank all the students who allowed me to show their bits of film, and for everyone for listening. And please do email me if you've got any comments or questions that you'd like to ask. Thank you.